My name is Refugio, and this is Camino Stories. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Camino Stories episode of this podcast. I had been meaning to do this podcast for quite some time, and finally we're here. Finally got around to editing it. It was a pleasure to have as my first guest Caín Andrade, who currently works at the LGBT Center here in Southern California. And it was an honor to have him as my first guest ever. He was able to talk to me about so many things that I think we both have gone through. We share so much in common, and from struggles with alcohol through journeys of heartache and challenges and moving through all of this, finding our way and exploring things like two-spirit and what does it mean, how is it connected to pronouns and identities, gender, and also, you get to hear a little bit of his poetry. He and I connected first through Twitter. I think it was through Joseph Delgado's Twitter page, who's a queer poet. And if you don't know about him, I encourage you to check him out and his page, and just beautiful poetry as a queer a person that's also as a brown queer person. I think we both admire. And anyway, so I'm really excited about this and hope that you all get something useful from listening. And without further ado, here's Caín Andrade. How's your morning been so far?
Well, I usually get up at 11, so I'm still waking up pretty much. And it's not just on Saturdays. I usually get up 10:30, 11. I think my schedule has been kind of a little topsy-turvy since this whole thing started. So, but I've always been a late riser. I'm not a fun morning person. How about you?
I try to get up super early in the morning. You know what I found, that if I try to sleep in, it's like I can't go back. It takes me a while to go back to getting up early in the morning. So like I'm experimenting with just getting up every single day, like at the time that I would need to get up, or not need to, but like want to, like at 5 in the morning.
Yikes. Yeah, my face said it all, right? I just last time I got up at 5 a.m. or was up by 5 was just this Monday, because I went to see my cousin off to surgery, so I had to be there by 4:30 or ish.
Oh, yeah.
But obviously,
yeah. Hope that your cousin is all right, or
she will be. Yeah, she just had a little cancer scare, so they have to make sure that she's doing okay.
Yeah.
And being a 30-year-old woman, she wants to make sure that she's around for a really, really long time.
Yeah, that sounds intense. I mean, even if, just the thought of it, like it, worry and unknown, and just
And considering like she has cancer on both sides of her family, both mom and dad, and just extended family. So yeah, I got to make sure I take care of my body and make sure that all those little nasty cancer cells stay away.
Yeah, I'm sure like that brings a lot of, just for like whenever it's the stuff like that happens, like we start to think about like, what does it mean for us and individually and for family and history and all that. It's all related.
Yeah, absolutely. Got to make sure you got to take care of that body.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining again. I wanted to start with trying something fun. So I have 2 questions to kick off our chat
Yay.
today. One of them being about being a superhero. I mentioned the hero's journey, you know, and if you had a superpower, if you were a superhero, like what would you be and why? And it could be anybody. It could be like a comic book hero. It could be family, like a character, an icon. I love comic books, so I have a lot to draw from. But yeah, what would it be for you?
Oh wow. What, I don't know why. Maybe, but my brain just went to a TV show. I don't know if you remember it, called Captain Planet and the Planeteers.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that show with those 5 kids that could summon up this creation of Mother Nature, protector kind of thing? Captain
Did that
Planet.
character have like a ring and
yes,
like a magic ring?
Kids, the 5 kids had rings, which with they could summon up Captain Planet to help them if it got too overwhelming. Yeah. And so, for some reason, like right now, considering like a lot of what I experience as far as energy wise, like feels like it goes right through my heart. So I thought about that one. I think his name was Mate or Mati. He was a short one, dark skinned. He was from I don't know exactly where he was. He was of color, and he was the smallest one. At times he felt like he was like, well, what does my power really like have to do with this? Like I can't really move mountains. I can't part the seas and everything. But like his, like was that one with the heart, you know, and he could really just speak to anybody and feel anything, you know, kind of amplified by by his ring or whatever it was, you know, animals, people, those that who couldn't speak and all of that. And I felt like I would want that power. Yeah, to be able to just communicate with anybody, no matter what, animal or human being.
Wow. Yeah, you're blowing my mind away because it's amazing that you remember the name of the character, because I used to watch that cartoon when I was a kid too in Mexico.
Oh,
and
wow.
It would be in Spanish. I don't remember the names. I just remember thinking that the ring was super cool, and like I would be, because growing up I would be in my head a lot. So like after I would watch cartoons, I would go and like play, like pretend that I would be like the character and just be like out in the back, like in the back lot. Like it's not even a backyard. Like in Mexico, it's just like a back piece of dirt. Just be like, and just be like walking around, and like I would like fantasize that I would be the character, and I would be like have these storylines and plots in my head. And like one of them would be that like I would be one of those like characters, because I thought that they were super cool, like with their powers and like the colors and the nature and all of that stuff.
And which one did you like enjoy the best? That one, the one I just explained, or?
I don't remember all of them. Like I mean, I don't remember like them specifically. I just remember like vaguely like being just enthralled by the greenness of it, of the colors, and then that something about the earth, like nature, that was like powerful. And like I never thought of like, because like other superheroes are like all about like I don't know, just other powers, but like this one was really interesting, to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I really like examined it too much back then, but like looking at it now, it's like it was just about teaching kids about what was going on in the earth and like the different things that the earth goes through. I remember one villain's name, I think it was Blythe, and she had a scar on one of her eyes, and it was always covered. You know? There was another one that looked like a big pig, like a big but that's the one that I remember, and that's the one I guess I connect to right now. You know,
they all seem to have like an eye patch for some reason, or many of the bad characters.
Reason. Yeah. So I know there was earth, there was fire, there was the water one, there was the heart, and I forget there was one more, but I forget that one. I think there was 5.
Interesting, the elements. I'm having a lot of thoughts of like stick danza right now. But on the flip side, a villain. So probably not want to be a villain, but villains can be fun characters wise. So like, what villain comes to mind that maybe you don't want to be, but you find interesting or entertaining. It could be a super villain. It could be like a villain from like a novela, like any character like that.
Okay. Well, my mind goes to Scarecrow in Batman, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he would want to know people's worst fears and play into them. They're shadows, as I've heard like some people like kind of like talk about them in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would like that. Like if I wanted to be a villain, I would want to know people's worst fears. Like I wouldn't want to physically be able to hurt anybody, but I would want to if I needed to know their worst fears.
Yeah.
And in the same like token, I'd be like, I just want to know what their worst fears is and like understand that and why. And maybe not so much use it against them, but unless they piss me off.
Yeah. It reminds me of that. Yeah. First shadow work too. And just exploring those sides of us, not because, we want to get lost in them, but to uncover them and so that healing can happen. It can be a very important element of the process.
Yeah, a friend of mine, their name is Ash. Their pronouns are they, and they. I told them once that what was our conversation that I was like, oh wow, I woke up with like so many spider bites, and I keep getting like bitten, and my partner doesn't get bit, and I don't know what's going on. And so it's like, oh wow, do you know that the spider, they said, is like associated with like the shadows of yourself? Like it's like they're trying to tell you something, like you're not fully embracing them or acknowledging them or something. I was like, wow, I don't think I ever really like searched deeper into that, but I thought that was interesting. And every time like I get a little insight into things like that, I always really, I don't know if it's just fixate on it and try to also, at the same time, identify those shadows within me. And I say like, what is it that I don't want to embrace yet? Or, say is a part of me, however dark or deep it is within me. Like, what is it that I'm afraid of embracing about?
Yeah, I love doing that stuff too. The work on, or rather, if I hear something and there's like a lot to unpack, and like I get super curious about it. Like I get a mental image of it. Like I want to like explore what like the feeling behind it is, and like where does it come up in different cultures? So like I love that stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, and ever since I started finding out like how much of my blood is indigenous, like I started wanting more and more. Like, and I told my dad, it's like I think I kind of started to narrow it down to the location in, excuse me, Jalisco, Lago Chapala, somewhere around there. There's a little section where I think it was part of, and you maybe know a little bit more about, the tribal people in that area, or maybe you don't. The Chichimecas. I don't know if you've heard that name before.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
So I think that was like a part of a bigger tribe. And then underneath them, there were two others that we're probably the closest to, which, shoot, I forgot their names, but I know, no, I don't remember them right now. But I've just been wanting to really like track down like what tribe exactly my family belonged to, at least on my grandmother's side from my father. Just because I'm really interested to know, like what were their beliefs and like what did they think of the I don't know, the LGBTQ people, or however they were termed in their society. Were they also like those two-spirit people? Were they shamans? Were they the healers? How did they perceive that type of person back then?
Yeah.
Because two-spirit has been something that I've been starting to get a little bit more interested in and like attach myself to. Because it seems like that's when, and I've heard some people that are two-spirit on YouTube and their interviews and talk about having that dual energy within them. And it's not just one or the other, it's both of them at the same time, So, and I like that notion.
Yeah. Well, what you mentioned earlier regarding, we were just talking about the character, right? Like the heroes, and I mentioned elements. And I know that when you and I connected about this conversation that we were going to have, you mentioned two-spirit and something that you've been exploring in dualities and things like that, and how useful or not are for you or for other people. Uh, and I got this idea or mental picture of elements, like of how those play into there's different energies, and maybe they're interpreted in specific ways as like society progresses, or like there are utilitarian categories that we assign in each culture, like with the Mesoamerica. Yeah, I'm interested to also. I've seen some depictions of like queerness and like, but I'm not too familiar, and it's something that I love to explore too. And it's really interesting that you know that we have this desire because we've been so uprooted and disconnected from the where we come from and like our stories, and then having to fit into this into the
mold,
broader society, the mold, that we face. But yeah, I opened up with a question on the hero side, and partly because it's fun, but also because I believe that we're all on a hero's journey, and we all have a story that we explore, and we're part of our lineage and where we come from, and with that comes along different experiences and so many things that come into play with what shapes us into being, and also it's a way to connect to like what is unique about us and what are unique gifts, or like our superpowers, in other words. So kind of exploring that theme in terms of the hero and the hero's journey. And you mentioned your family is from it sounds like it's from that area of Jalisco. Can you tell me like where your family, where you're from, and where you grew up, and kind of like how that influenced you?
I think it's starting to influence me more now in my last couple of years. But from what I know, there's this one little ranch outside of Guadalajara, maybe an hour outside of Guadalajara, which might not even exist on the map to this day. And it's called El Tarengo. And so that's pretty much where I kind of started visiting when I was about 8 years old with my mother. And we went to that little ranch, which there was no running water. The water gets cut off like at a certain time. At the first time I went, you would still go to El Pozo and you would take out water from there. You have to poop on the back with the chickens in the corral. And I was like, oh my God, like this is just really, way back there. Okay. And so that was my first glimpse into, my family's origin, because both of my families actually sort of started in that little area. And it was just part of this bigger hacienda, my dad says, from this wealthy landowner in that area. And it just eventually got abandoned and it just became what it is. And then at one point he tells me that the lower portion of El Tarengo got inundated by this huge flood. And eventually it kind of survived in its own way. But they built another city higher up on ground. And so now it's like El Tarengo de Arriba and El Tarengo de Abajo.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like where, and I think like if I do anytime soon want to like go back and explore more of my roots and like talk to some people that might know like exactly where my grandparents, because unfortunately now they're all gone. So I would have to like start asking questions there, and maybe have my father and my mother take the ancestry.com test and see how much it narrows it down. But they all pretty much around that area, Guadalajara, Jalisco, and El Distrito Federal, all those areas they live at. But most of the family originated there in El Tarengo.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about where you grew up? Can you tell me more about where you grew up and what that experience was like?
So I was conceived in Mexico, but I was
Oh,
born here in LA, East
mm,
LA actually.
mm.
And I actually just recently visited, uh, was it Cesar Chavez and Soto? That's two cross streets, right? Cesar Chavez and Soto.
I think so. Sounds like it would be.
Anyway, in that area
Mm,
around there, the building where my family first got an apartment still exists.
mm,
And that's where we all arrived. My father and my mother and my two older brothers arrived in May of 1980, actually.
mm,
And so they came to this little East LA apartment with three other families, which they were my aunts and uncles. But it was about like, I don't know, more than 10 people in a one like bedroom apartment, you know. And
mm,
that's where we got started. I mean, my dad wanted to get to work, and my uncles so did my uncles, and East LA was our first home. And then we just kind of migrated all over around that area to Bell Garden, Southgate, Huntington Park, all of those areas. We
mm,
never really stuck around in like any one town for very long. There was a lot of stuff going on with my family, with my father and my mother. And it seemed like every 3 to 5 years we would be moving. One of the things that I would speak about, even during therapy, about my own journey was like, you know, I don't know how much of a role it played that during my youth, up until I was like at least 26 or 27, I had moved with my family about 20 times, over 20 times. And
mm.
so
Wow.
it's like, I don't know what that does to a person,
Mm,
that you can never find a spot that actually feels like you're rooted in.
mm-hmm.
You're just always like, oh, up and go, up and go, up and go. And so yeah, we pretty much roamed around that whole Southeast LA area and everything, and just it was pretty tough, I suppose, if I really think about it. But
Mm,
now I guess I've kind of arrived uh, back here in Long Beach, and
mm,
I am finally, I think, starting to find some roots, but not in the location so much as like I'm feeling more, because I'm finding out more about myself. I feel like the location is not so important,
mm,
you know?
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, what would you say is a favorite part of the cluster of places where you grew up, and what was like your least favorite or the most challenging part? I mean, it sounds like you gave me a flavor of that already, but your most favorite and your least from that experience.
My favorite place was actually this one that seemed like a giant mansion somewhere in East LA. I don't even remember where. It was on a hill, and it seemed like it had 4 or 5 rooms. I don't know how we could afford it, but we did. It was like back in the early '80s, and I spent some kind of like I guess magical time there. At least in my imagination was really magical. I remember even going to like a little closet, and I had my little TV and my cup of noodles or whatever it was, and I was just sitting there and escape the world. And I was just nowhere, and I was just in my little spot. It's also where my uh, one of my aunts that's passed away, Nina, Tia Nina, or something like that, or something. I forget.
Mm,
It was one of my grandmother's sisters, and she came to take care of me for a while because my
mm.
grandmother heard, oh, they're not taking care of my grandkid, mi nieto, que le están haciendo y todo esto. Entonces,
Wow. Aw.
so it's like, oh yeah, I'll take care of him while you get here.
Mm,
And so she took care of me, and it was like, it felt like so fun. She was a very prim and proper lady, but also very loving and very nurturing and caring. And she would sit and have her tea and whatever, and I would just be playing and with my little like boom box and recording myself. It was pretty fun, I think.
mm,
And so that was probably like my favorite memory of like one of the houses that I
mm,
lived in. And I think I block out a lot of what was going on during that
mm,
time.
mm-hmm,
Um, my least favorite, I guess, would be, gosh, I guess it started more like because of the circumstances, started getting a little bit tougher around when I was 15 at a place in Bell, on the street, I think it was called San Luis. And it's probably because that's where the peak of like my family's trauma and challenges started to really hit a high. You know, my father's alcoholism and my brother getting his girlfriend pregnant. And I think he actually was almost slightly, involved in, some kind of shady stuff. I don't know. But it seemed like everything was starting to really like bubble up. And then I was also starting to like notice, oh shoot, like I like boys, like what's going on here? And I think I was probably 13. And I started buying, men's workout magazine because like, oh, these men appeal to me. Like, why do men appeal to me? And so that was really hard because, I started to think about in that house, like, oh shoot, like what's my family going to say when I come out? Like, what's my grandmother going to do? Like, she's going to disown me.
Yeah.
So that house really has a lot of bad memories leading up to the eventual. It was like the family started to really show itself for what it was, at least my immediate family during that house. And I mean, I guess it came at the time when I started to grow up. And so that was tough. Yeah, that was like probably one of the toughest places to live just because of what was happening during that time.
Wow. I'm just being struck by how many similarities we have. I mean, we already know this, and I already know this since we talked before. And like the bit about going in the closet, like talk about symbolism. Like I would do the same because I would like try to shut my world. It was the only place that I could find that could be my own. That would go in there and listen to music and lip sync. Like silently, but like I would have headphones, and I would be like just imagine like that I would be like in music videos and what it would look like. So it was a relief for me. And I think it was also a way to escape a little bit or to have some sanity for myself of all the turbulence things, which leads me to and then in terms of the hero's journey, there's always some kind of a challenge, challenges that we run into in organizing. We call it a fork in the road, or how we craft our stories, and we share that part of ourselves. And these are like the moments where things just come to a head, and we make a choice, and then our life changes to do something about it, perhaps. And I found that way of putting the story together, oversimplifying a lot, oversimplification, because there isn't in life, there isn't just one thing that like defines your entire life, as if like trying to cram it into some kind of storyline. But there can be moments. I know for me, a couple of the big things was coming to this country as a teen, and then going to school and here in Ventura County, and to a majority white school, and not speaking English, and having that experience of just not fitting in, and just feeling very awkward, and just very isolating. And then the other experience was my brothers having mental health issues, having schizophrenia, which took me a long time to like process. And I still struggle with it. And then those two, I think they're not the only two things, but they definitely help me or have influenced how I look at the work that I do. And part of the reason why I'm so big on like healing practices and mental health, especially in activism spaces, and all the work that I've done and continue to explore. But I would love to hear from you, like, what would you consider are like those big moments? They not necessarily have to be like one single one. Maybe they're like over time, but like if you were to maybe zero in on one or however many that you think defined your experience of like things came to a head and kind of pushed you to make a decision about and eventually ending up where you're at in your life and the work that you do.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think it was around, it might have been 2009, 2010. And I had just, I'll be fully honest now, I had just come off my second DUI. And so I was not doing very well. And I was staying with my mom. And I think I was staying with her because I had not been able to really come up with my rent and my place by myself or something after I got the second DUI. I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but I just needed to stay with her. And that time in 2009, 2010, everything was very, very unclear, very, very uncertain, I don't think my body was anywhere. My mind was everywhere. And I decided, because I think I might have been seeing some guy at that point, and he all of a sudden he moved to New York. And I said, oh, well, I'm not doing anything. And I'm just going to go visit him. And for the most part, it was really fun. We were getting super high on pot and drinking wine and just having the time of our lives, in New York, and just going everywhere, showing me all the places that he knew about. And I just, at some point, and this was after I got in the second DUI, and I'm out there in New York, doing God knows what, with who knows who. And at some point, one day, I just asked him to drop me off in Central Park, and I said, hey, well, we're going to meet up for drinks later tonight and everything. I was staying with him, but, I told him, let's just let me look at the city on my own. And so he dropped me off in Central Park. And from there, I don't know if you've ever been to New York before.
Once, and I was there in Central Park only once. Very brief. Yeah.
So I had him drop me off there. And from there, I walked back all the way to Brooklyn, which is about maybe 3 to 4 hours walk, which I did. I walked from Central Park all the way down, and I just really had a moment to myself, within myself, in all that chaos. And I know for me, sometimes I feel like when I get lost among that much chaos, I get more peace within me. But as long as I don't engage with anybody, if I just kind of make my way and, plow through that chaos, then I'm good. But something, I guess, happened during that time, and I really did make a decision, even without really saying it or even seeing it in my head. I guess I just felt it. And I think I was going back the next day, and I was really, really sad. I don't know. I felt like maybe New York had a little bit of me, a little piece of me that I wanted to, take back. But the decision that I made during that day, because things were really just not going well, I was really lost in despair and pain. And I also had just broken up with somebody 2008 to 2009 after they had neglected to tell me their HIV status. And so, I was not positive after that. I still was negative, but it really hurt me because I really loved this person, and I kind of put all my faith in that person. And once again, I was kind of crushed. So that happened. I was drinking. I was just kind of all of the mess. And I had to come back, and I had to decide, do I want to keep drinking? Do I want to keep going down this path? Do I not want to do anything about it? Or do I want to stop? There were plenty of examples in my family and other friends that had just either not made it or become involved in much bigger problems. And, and I just did not want to. Something about that last day in New York and just really taking that time, that I had to come back and say, this is it. This is where my life either goes really, really well at some point again, or it keeps going further down south. So after that trip, when I came back, I was like, I made a lot of changes. I really did remove myself from a lot of what I thought might have been toxic to me. So staying away from the bars for a couple of years, and just staying away from dating, staying away from a lot of the friends that I had made. And that, really shifted a lot for me. I don't know, shifted whole parts in the universe so that I could finally start finding some clarity. Obviously, that was just a really tiny step, even though it was a huge decision for me to make, because through those next 10 years would be a lot of ups and downs, a lot of learning. And it wasn't, but that right there, that decision that I made to come back and say, okay, this is it. Like, I cannot let this keep happening. Like, this has already been happening in my family with my brothers and my uncles and my dad. And like, this has got to stop. Like, I don't want this to happen to me. Like, I don't want to have to all of a sudden say, you know what, this is too hard. I'm going to marry a woman. I'm going to get myself some kids. I'm going to make my parents happy, buy a house, and we're good. Like, no. So that was tough because it was leaving everything that I felt like I had built, you know, but it wasn't me. I think, and when I say it, it wasn't me. Like, I always say now when I talk to people in coming out groups, and I say, when I came out in 2001, I felt like it was just I came out into a type of mold people wanted me to be in as a gay man, as a very macho Mexican, you know, guy that goes to the gym, that wears a certain type of clothes to show off his body and that speaks nice and masculine and everything. But obviously that wasn't me. You know, it never felt quite comfortable, you know, which is maybe why I, you know, did my best to stay, you know, intoxicated through a lot of those years, because that was the only way to tolerate that. And there was also still so many shadows, so much trauma that I needed to sift through. And I was reluctant to do that. And even though I made that decision right then and there after New York, I don't know what happened between, I guess, 2010 and 2015. Yeah, 2015. I know that I also, one day, not too long after that trip, I also quit my job as a behavior therapist. One day I just literally said, this is it. Like, I cannot go back to that place. It wasn't necessarily anything going on that was wrong. I was just like, this doesn't fit me anymore. And one day, as I was walking to that first case, I walked away. And I almost didn't give them any reason, no clue why I had leaving. I'm not going to continue this job anymore. And I stopped working altogether. So I was thankful that my mother was able to say, you can stay here for a while, you know, and, you know, help me out when she could. Because it was quite a while before I found something else that seemed like it was my next step. You know, it was after 9 months, I think, after I quit my job. And again, I don't give you like exact years, because it's a little blurry during those first parts of the 2010 decade. But yeah, when I left that job and I stayed with my mother, it probably was like a good 9 to 11 months before really anything came about that called to me, you know. And sure enough, it was this little place called World Centered Outreach that was run by a pastor and some of his friends. You know, fantastic people and super religious, but super open and super loving. You know, so they could care less that I was gay and anything like that. And that's where I really started to, I guess, find my love for helping people again, and start to really realize that I needed to be doing that. I think I really started to explore that, yeah, my life without it also being in service to others is a little too chaotic for me. You know, if I let myself just be me with the shadows and the creativity and the mind wandering and wanting to be alone most of the time, then I think that might have been, at least during that portion of the time, a little bit too dangerous for me to let myself sink into, you know. So I needed to make sure that I was helping other people. You know, I needed to be of service to somebody, you know. And I felt like that was the best balance for my life. Yes, I can embrace those dark sides of me, the creativity that's very chaotic in itself a lot of the times, but I also need to step out of myself. And so that's where that job was pivotal and really like pushing me forward into other lines of work that would help me get to others that needed my help and my type of patience and kindness and heart, you know. So that kind of like catapulted me into working with Skid Row with the homeless population because the pastor had started to work with that a company, an organization that did that. But yeah, I think truly that decision, to leave New York with a different set of mind. Otherwise, I know where my life would have headed. And then stop that job that was not making me happy anymore. So take that risk and say, hey, I need this time to really be without anything, really even without money. I didn't have money. I mean, I did my best to live off the generosity of my family. Unfortunately, I had some savings, I'm sure, but, and then kind of slowly, I think, trusting. I don't know if I was really intentionally thinking that the universe would guide me at that point, because I don't think I'm as close to the universe as I am to it now. But it did. It presented that little opportunity at that day with that organization, World Centered Outreach, to help young people in South LA. And that was the universe saying, it's like, okay, it's time. Let us give you just a little bit of help there, but you have to do the rest of the work. And so I grabbed hold of that little, help, that little seedling that they gave me. And that's what kind of really started the ball rolling to where I am today,
And so you mentioned that you worked as a behavioral therapist. Like, how did you come to that in the first place? And why was it that back then that you were also this desire to help people, or was it a different version of that? Yeah, how was that process?
I believe that. So it started when I first went to work for a place called Elliott Institute, which I had my first DUI during that time, which not pleasant. But I went to work there because I had been a tutor with middle schools, just like regular education. And then I said I needed a challenge. But see, during this time when I was looking for those jobs, it was just, I needed a paycheck. I happened to be good at being a tutor. I happen to have enough patience for these kids. So I hadn't really understood that what I was doing was helping me, stay afloat by helping others. I was just doing it because that's what I was being kind of like moved through. I wasn't understanding why I was there. I needed a paycheck. I needed money. I needed to have a job. And that's where I was. That's where I happened to be at. But I went to this place called Elliott Institute. And so this is where the first time I came across people with autism and neurodiversities and just mental health challenges. And the director said, like, after she interviewed me, or after her staff interviewed me, and then they kind of brought me into her, and she said, like, I like his temperament, hire him. And so that was pretty much it. Yes, I have a very chill, calm temperament all the time, no matter what's happening. And so she enjoyed that. And sure enough, there are some times where their kids would get very rowdy and rough, and they had severe autism. And so we had to maintain a certain level of calmness, to really address those sort of things. And I happened to be good at it. I happened to, be able to work with them and have fun with them and care for them and educate them. And I did get my first love, of working with those that were the most vulnerable in our communities. Again, I still just kind of like going with the motions. I wasn't really trying to find a career or like, oh, I'm good at this, I should keep on doing this. It was still a job. Obviously I was still partying my head off. I was working probably Disney while I was also working, for that place for kids with neurodiversities. I think I came to work once right after I had gotten out of jail. I parked my car in front of the building, and my friends from work, they were like, oh, what happened? Like, oh, it was a DUI this weekend. I was like, oh, okay. And so it was like so much chaos going on outside of my job, where I had to like kind of come there, get on my knees, face to face with these kids and help.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what was happening in my world. I came there to help them, and that's what I wanted to do. I found like a really strong connection with them, with people with autism, feeling like there's not so much anything wrong with them or anything that they need to fix. It's more, I can help them navigate this world that already doesn't make sense to me, but I'll teach you a little bit about how your beautiful brain can navigate what's going on. Because I feel like their brains are. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish. Yep.
Oh, I was just saying, like, I feel like their brains are just far more advanced, and they can decipher so much in what's going on in the universe. It's just in certain ways and patterns and colors and the way they view things, and how overstimulated they are by their environment. It's because there's a lot going on in their environment that we can't see, but it's around them and they can sense it. So go ahead.
Yeah, just reminds me of what I mentioned earlier regarding that everybody's a hero, and even when there's something different about you, there are also unique elements to you that you're able to contribute to yourself and to your community in one way or the other. And the journey is in tapping into that. And because it talking about the shadow work and for lack of a better word, positive or negative, like when you integrate the two of them and you can become whole, or you're always whole and complete. It's just that it's a process of finding that integration and being able to perhaps, I don't know, just being able to be more anchored in that way of being. But I wanted to go back to something that you said regarding the temperament. I like his temperament, and I get that a lot too. You seem to be such a cool, collected guy. Like, just you never really lose it, or I have, but it takes a lot for me to do that. And it's very interesting because I think for me, it's been a journey of figuring out why that is, which is not necessarily like a virtue. Like it's more like through therapy, I've discovered that it's more about a defense mechanism and a way to protect myself. And it goes back to like my experience that I had growing up. So I wonder if you've explored that in yourself and like how that has come through for you.
I got to say almost exactly as you have just described, that it was probably, and maybe it still is, more of a defense mechanism that I've begun to morph into something that I can use for good. Obviously I have, because I've worked with these populations that they need somebody that's not going to react or seem afraid or seem angry or lash out at them like others would, and others have. But yeah, I think it was a defense mechanism. And I almost picture it like when somebody does throw anger at you, or I don't know, some kind of something, that at you, or something happens around you and you're supposed to act in a certain way, and I have like trouble really describing it. Probably you're a little more articulate on it, but it's almost like before your body has a chance to feel it in that immediate moment, for me at least, it's like your body already just sucks it right in, just into somewhere where it can trap it and hold it. And maybe it knows what to do with it and maybe it doesn't, but it's trapped. Like I could be in the middle of the horrible crisis at work where people are just bloody and fainting, and it's just okay. How do I help? Let's go. Let's get to what we need to do and everything. Still remain calm. But I don't know how healthy that is for my body all the time. Yeah. Or at one point, if I don't let it go, if I don't purge it, it eventually starts collecting in me. So I have to make sure I let that out. Because yes, I am not going to react with anger or cry immediately. It really does feel like it sucks it in, traps it, and then holds it until I figure out what to do with it. you know?
Yeah.
And I think that defense mechanism is what really, what's the word? It's what really, I guess, tormented my body the most when I was in my 20s and part of my 30s in the early 30s, because it held it held on to so much that I didn't realize that was happening, before all that research on myself that I did. So all of that stuff was collecting on me, and just weighing on me, on my shoulders, on my chest, on my, my voice, and it's just like, why? Like, and not be able to let it go and to just feel it inside me and just, constricting me. So I don't know if that it felt like that to you, like you just kind of suck it in, you hold it, and maybe you have to do some work now. Like I do a lot of meditating and a lot of like breathing and a lot of just using my imagination to say that I need to let it go off my body, to not keep it there, to identify the places on my body, like I just mentioned, my chest and my shoulders, where I hold things the most. Make sure it's time to let go.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for that image of like trapping energies, because I think a lot about that. And I never really thought about it that way. And I think it totally makes sense. The way that I describe it is like feeling like trapped, which is why earlier in my years, like I would use alcohol a lot too and get in trouble with the law as well. And because it was a way for me to like I felt so trapped that I needed to, I don't even have the words. Like I needed to escape. I needed to break out. And ironically, it never worked. Like it felt like I was still trapped, even within that state of mind. And it was very frustrating because I felt like I couldn't completely let go. And I think now as I'm getting older, it's a journey that I think never ends. But I think your sense of finding ways to process those things out, to be able to release. I know for me, I'm a very physical person, so that's why Aztec dancing and yoga and like just I was able to connect to a Toltec wisdom group, and one of the leader of the group, a good guy, I brought up this concept of, or rather, we were talking about this concept of predator energies, both out there and inside yourself. And he was mentioning how one technique on how to deal with that is anytime that those like thoughts or like those running through your mind, that like your mind's racing, just do something physical. Like even if you have to like drop down and do push-ups, do whatever it takes, because that's a good way to disrupt those thoughts. There are other ways, but I know for me, one of the easiest things for me to access is through physical activity.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I really would need something, that moves my body a lot more. And I guess now in this last 3 or 4 months without any gym and I started to get a little bit lazy on even just going out jogging or riding my bike. So, and I feel like, I think I feel the weight of like what's going on too a little bit more lately, and starting to be a little lax and even meditating. And I disappoint myself because of that, because I know how much it helps. And it seems like every time after I meditate and I feel that relief of it, somehow I still forget after a couple of days how much relief I really do get from that meditating and from letting stuff go off of my body, because now that I am more in tune with those mechanisms, even that defense mechanism and just how my body works and where it retains stress and other people's energies, I think I am more of a what do you call it? A lightning rod for it. Like I get more of it because I know of it more. Like I'm more aware of it, so I feel like it's more attracted to me. So I have to be even more vigilant. I feel sometimes when I feel that there's energy that in the room or in my surroundings that I don't want any of. Like I always want it to be with my permission that I give you that energy, that I don't know, however it feels healing to you, it feels calming to you, whatever it is, but it's mine. If I want to give it to you, I'll give it to you. But unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way with our bodies. It seems like it's just pulled out of us if you're near that area or person or thing. I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, I think as we grow and evolve in who we are and become more of us, and in our journey, we find different things that help us to navigate all of this, and also become more aware. I think that's the first step, to like really be aware of, like, often that's a problem. We're not aware. We're unaware. We're running on automatic. We're running with programming in our minds. We're running through emotional programming that we picked up, like you're describing, like stuff that we suck in and we just like get stuck in there, and we're carrying around like forever since we've existed. And I believe also that there might even be stuff that it's even from our lineage, from our family, from our culture, from our society, wounds and traumas and all kinds of things that we carry around, right? And so dismantling, and by that I mean like taking the mantle off and looking at it, and not necessarily, maybe you're not discarding, maybe there is a place for that, but like you just dismantle, taking the top off and actually looking inside and see, oh, this is what's behind what I feel, or like this. And then you start to see the stuff that's behind that, and then the stuff that's behind that. And it's a process, as you're talking about your lineage, your family, and the curiosity. I also have that curiosity of my family, like where they come from. Like I know my family has Otomi lineage from central Mexico, but there's so much that I don't know. And I want to do a family tree, and like, maybe it's a matter of like going to Mexico and like digging up the records and like see who were the parents of so and so, and just do that research. But yeah, just examining, I think that's the first step. And then once you examine, it feels like you have you go through a process of seeing what serves you no longer, and where perhaps there's an energy or a pull for you to tap more into. And I want to go to like what we touched on, and I know that we talked about an email, which is through email on this two-spirit thing. And as you're talking and describing all of this, like, how would you say that? Because I think with the male and female identities and how we define ourselves, I think it depends on each person and where they're at and what serves them, and also what's unique about them, and or what's useful. How would you do you can you talk about how you're exploring those questions, what's useful for you, and how, if any, it ties into maybe now things that get in the way of you tapping into those broader things that can like maybe empower you to be more of just that energy that helps you to ground yourself and to be more of you, I suppose, or whatever other way of understanding it that you have.
So what are the challenges with prevent that hold me back from really truly exploring all of me?
Yeah, let's start with that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, first, like, as you talked about the two-spirit thing, like just recently I had a group that I was talking to about, like what characteristic about you like speaks most to your femininity. And so that conversation led into really like describing like what is feminine energy and what is masculine energy. And also, like in the past, I had said like I don't enjoy those terms applied to me. He's not masculine, he's not feminine, I'm just Caín. And this entity that is known as Caín, as far as I know. And then during that meeting with the other people, and I started to think about masculine and feminine energy as like two little orbs of energy, and whenever I want some of the masculine energy, I just go ahead and take some of that. Whenever I want some of the feminine energy, I can take that. But those are always like happening at the same time, and I think I'm like kind of losing my train of thought here, but like it doesn't have to be, that as we have been taught masculineness and as we have been taught that feminine is. So, and I think that's the way that I was looking at it, the way I've been taught that those two things are. Like, oh, if you're feminine, then you wear dresses and you wear makeup and you wear this and you wear that expresses your femininity. No. Masculine energy, if it amplifies that masculine energy for you, then you can wear that makeup. Maybe it's called war paint for you. You can wear that dress. Maybe that's something that makes you feel powerful and assertive and, just elevated. So that for you elevates your masculine energy, so I think that's when I like when people say, clothes have no gender, makeup has no gender, facial hair has no gender. Like if you feel that those things elevate your masculinity or your femininity, then you wear them. You put them on and you amplify those types of energies that you want to put out into the world. So thinking about it like that has really helped me, because I'm still on that road and well, do I use they and them pronouns? Does that really fit me? Or maybe just my name fits me and that's all that really fits me. I don't know if I need pronouns or if I need all of them, for me, like within me. And it takes me back to a question by one of my therapists. And as far as like, am I really expressing all of myself and why not? And I always come back to, or this is the question she posed after hearing me speak and not really being certain about like, what is it that I am afraid of, or what am I not expressing? And it was just simply put to me, it's like, what are you afraid of showing? What were you afraid of? If I truly let go of all of it, just put it out completely into the world. In the past, I felt like it's too scary. It's too much for people to take. It's too much for people to embrace. It's too weird. It's too eccentric. People will just be put off by it, And so that's been a little bit of my concern, just that like, well, what will I be letting go if I truly, completely let myself go? And I don't think I have just yet either. I think I continue to make small steps as I keep learning more about myself, about my indigenous roots, about my spiritual roots, about all the people in my family and how they've contributed to it, and what I know in my body and how it processes in things. But I don't think I'm quite there yet. Like that question that therapist posed, like, what are you afraid of letting go? And I'm not even sure like how I could really reply. Like, what do I look like fully letting go?
Yeah.
Like, what would that look like? And would that feel amazing and liberating, or would it be just an overload of my system? Kind of like when a person with autism and has like over stimulating sensory, like would it feel like that a little bit? But yeah, I still want to keep taking steps toward letting go completely. And maybe it might take me finding a creative outlet where I can be that version of myself fully on a stage, on paper, expressing my feelings. I don't know, something that can really show all of me, just out there. But I don't know how yet.
Yeah. I think as you were talking before, you said that question of like, what are you afraid of, was immediately what I thought of too. And it's a journey to explore that question, because I could see how behind behind that question could be like you describe, are people gonna like, is it gonna be too much, and then there's like, I feel the psychology behind it of like, I know for me, like sometimes when I hold back on being like my full self, or maybe areas of dimensions of me, like I think that too. And I've explored this with my therapist of just fears of abandonment and fears of like not being liked and like being rejected and those kinds of things, which is really interesting how they show in other spaces. But as you mentioned, like, what does it look like to fully let go? I don't know, or if that is even the right way of looking at it. But it reminds me, I just thought of like throughout history, that people have sometimes developed, that's why they've developed characters to be able to express certain parts, like whether it's a cartoon character, or like somebody writing under a different name, or like, just it's very interesting how we're not the only ones that have explored these questions. It's just that I almost feel like it's a different iteration of that, but like a more to like our modern times and what it means. And and then with the pronouns, I think that's very interesting, because there's such there's so many layers to it, and I think it's more complicated. It's not as simple as the political question of you have to like this question of like respect and like and although it's important and critical in terms of like honoring somebody and being respectful and having somebody that feels safe and they're asserting their identity, but there's like this element of like, I'm feeling like language is coming up short, because it's not like it's like we're trying to work with what we have, but it's like it doesn't quite fit. Like none of it quite fits. Like how we truly, like on a more emotional level, how we function. And I think that's sometimes I find that I don't know how to either reconcile the two. But it's like that's the place I think where people, and it's no wonder why there's different levels of struggling with it, because there's so many layers to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely language isn't enough sometimes for what one feels. And I don't know if like the pronouns themselves really like describe what it is that people feel about their gender. A lot of the times, I don't know that it is quite just a political statement saying like, I'm going to refuse gender. I don't need to be part of the binary or whatever that is, and that's great. I suppose if that's your thing, but I think like for me, I don't need to make a political statement. I don't feel like I want to or anything like that. It's just trying to describe what I feel and what I'm inside, and how close I can get to it with words. And I don't know if that I ever will. Maybe trying a picture or performing something might be more close to expressing, what it is that I feel or am. Mm-hmm. I often think like if I were to do drag or put on makeup or, dress in a certain way, I often feel like I am covering up what I already feel like is most important. Like I don't need to put on a mask. I want to show this face. I want to show everything that I am. And I feel like sometimes putting on makeup is just, it's covering up who you really are. And I don't know if that's fair to people that wear makeup or not. I don't know what you think.
We could go on and on. Because I'm getting this, remembering the taking off masks, which is also something that was mentioned in the Toltec Wisdom group, and how that has, and then how I'm connecting it visually to like a luchador masks, like it, it's the aspect of like taking on the character, but also like, there is an element of hiding, and it's so interesting. There's two things going on. Like on the one hand, it's liberating, but on the other hand, is it another iteration of like something that you were trying to run from, or like you're trying to break free from. And again, like you use what you have at your disposal at the moment, and that's perfectly okay. But it's like, yeah, those are there's a lot to explore there.
Yeah.
I don't want to take too much of your time because we already spent a lot of time talking.
No worries. It's gone
But
by very quickly.
yeah, so I've enjoyed our conversation. So one thing that I did want to, before we wrapped up, was your poetry, because that's also something that we have in common as well. And I love to. I know there's a poem that you wrote, and if you're up for it, we'd love if you can read maybe a portion of it. You don't have to. You can take time and like select which one you want to read. If you're up for it, or any other poem, that would be great. But before you did that, and if you don't want to read, that's also okay. But also wanted to, before you did that, I wanted to ask you if you could describe your style of poetry, because I would love to hear your thoughts about like the poem that you pick and like what you were thinking about it too as well.
Okay. Let me grab my laptop because I'm on my iPad so I can get a little portion of the.
Yeah.
I think my style came about, I think when I used to write, it comes sort of in like in a fit, like a tantrum of my body in a way. Like I have to write it literally within like 10 minutes. It has to shoot out of me that quickly. I'm not one, like I have a friend that he's very romantic with his poetry and very calculated, and they're fantastic. They're amazing. And it's so full of romance, and it'll take them days maybe, or even longer than that, carefully chosen words. But for me, it just kind of just spurts out. Like if I have some kind of stimuli, I might write a whole poem or a piece riding the subway, maybe because I saw somebody on the train and it triggered some thought. But I need to write it then and there. Otherwise, if I wait, it'll probably not be, what it was meant to be. Or, so I can't wait. If I have to write something, it'll be immediately. And it's usually very raw, very feral, sometimes painful, painful memories. Let me look that up for.
Okay, no problem. It's very interesting that you say that, because I feel like I'm more like your friend. I need to I want to take a look at it and like refine it and like different things.
Yeah, see, and I can't do that. Like I have to make sure that I leave it alone once I finish it, because I'll start, oh wait, maybe I should add a comma there. Oh wait, maybe I should change this word. And then eventually I change too much, and I'd rather it stay as raw and to the original core of it than, as I wrote it. So,
yep.
Let's see. I have it right here. And so it's you. So the poem is called what? Broadway and Junipero. And I wrote it in 2009 during that time when, or wait, was it 2009? I think around sometime during that time. And I was just sitting at a cafe in Long Beach called Hot Java. I don't know if you know that place. And just observing. And I started to write. No reason, just started to write. Where do I start? Let's see. I also have this. It's kind of like, well, I'll just start reading. I'm getting all like jumbled now in my language. If you ever find yourself sitting at the corner of Broadway and Junipero, you'll understand I have to ramble. I don't do coherent well. It's a mess of a street, and probably a sociologist's dream. I don't see the lines drawn very clearly at this nexus of Long Beach. Nothing makes sense. It's a damn fruit salad, fucking frijoles and tortillas, and those damn black beans. Don't fucking judge me. It's a total mess on Broadway and Junipero.
Yeah.
I think I was a little pissed off that day too, though. So.
Are you feeling the emotion as you were reading it?
I was,
like the same emotions?
I think I was annoyed that a date was late or something. Because I mean, I don't know, like some of the words in there, I would think that would maybe offend somebody, like fag hags or gym rats, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Well, I will be annoyed too. And it's happened to me when like that happened. Like it takes me like, oh wait, like what time was it supposed to be? I was like, what do you mean what time? Like I'm already here.
I know, and I'm like I always like to be early or on time, and so like I like
Mm,
have to wait, and like
great.
I'm very low maintenance, so I'm ready as really quick.
Yeah.
But thank you for letting me share that.
Yeah, I know. Well, thank you for sharing all of this. And yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation. And yeah, so much we could go on and on for
I
hours,
know.
but I really loved our conversation. But we'll keep on talking.
We will. Thank you so much, Refugio.
Well, there you have it. I hope that you enjoyed my chat with Cain. I definitely did. I wanted to keep on talking to him. Uh, and yeah, I'm so grateful that we were able to get into things that normally, in a superficial conversation, we might have not been able to get to and get to know each other. And that's really the purpose of this podcast, to talk to people like Cain and that are doing work in their communities, are doing all kinds of things. And because I know there's a lot of interviews out there that focus on covering a person's work or political ideology or other stuff. And there's other places for that. I know that's important too, but I am most interested in just really diving into the person's story, like who are they inside, and what makes them unique, and just seeing them as a person, and seeing how we are really there's qualities that we can relate to, and that also we share as human beings, no matter where we come from. And there's things that we can learn from each other. This isn't about I know the answers or that person knows the answers. Like this is about coming together, and that's the vision for this podcast, really, to be a space where we come together and we share the stories that we've been able to experience in our journeys, in our roads. That's why I thought about Camino stories of we all have our journey, and we pick up a few things along the way, and maybe there's insights here that can maybe trigger or just reinforce or surface other insights and other things that collectively we can build wisdom that can help us heal and especially during these difficult times. So anyways, hope that you tune in for the next episode of Camino Stories, and thank you so much for listening.